There's literally a lot happening in the world of sports.
Very much so.
And I thought we might do the sports list at Misty's bag,
Okay.
unless that was your knowing is half the battle, but we can figure that out. Good morning and welcome to the Hodge Pack, sports, life, and everything in between, right here on 106.9 The Country Giant. We're brought to you by Lotto Land and Cattle. Rocket and rolling, tons to cover today. Josh and Hodge are here. Misty's, I don't think it's a live PJ Tour meeting she had today, but she did have a secret meeting she could not tell us about. Follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, well, major announcement to come.
Yeah, if you hear the breaking news theme, hear it a little bit later, you'll know what we were talking about. But we'll have to hear about Misty's vacation, exciting things next week. But Josh and I are here again. Our guest will appear our Pest Patrol phone line. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of things happening in the world of sports, on the golf course, off the golf course, baseball, softball, guy betting on things that he shouldn't be betting on. And just a lot to cover. So, Josh, it's literally a loaded show. We've got some guests coming on. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in the last 7 days since we've had a show last, there have been a lot of excitement in the world of literally all across the sports world.
There really has. I mean, obviously we've got finals going on in NBA and NHL for those who care. There's not many around here, I don't think. And just baseball season's going along, and all the college playoffs and softball and baseball. It's been very busy.
Well, there's a lot going on. You mentioned it. The NHL Stanley Cup Finals going on, the NBA Finals as well. And so we'll jump into our Lawrence Hall headline report. In the NBA, Frank Vogel is hired as the Phoenix Suns head coach. But the headline is the NBA Finals. Vogel coming off of winning a championship. Again, we talked about last week with Monty Williams. The NBA, you can win a championship, and it does not take long for them to get rid of you. Frank Vogel winning a championship in the bubble with the Lakers, gets unemployed, and now is with the Phoenix Suns. We'll see if he'll be able to carry that on with what Monty Williams has done. Chris Paul trying to figure out where he's going to go. Possibility that Chris Paul may land at Los Angeles and with the Lakers. The other thing that came out about the NBA news before we get to the finals news was Kyrie Irving apparently reached out to LeBron James about maybe coming to Dallas. I think there's no chance he comes to Dallas. One, his son's going to go play. Bronny's playing at USC. And I don't see LeBron wanting to share a limelight. Maybe not so much with Kyrie, but Luka. Now, Josh, I wanted to ask this question, and I'll go ahead and dive into it. Is there a player, because there's a lot of people that don't like LeBron, okay? There's a lot of people that have not been a big fan of LeBron because of a lot of reasons, a lot of political stance and all those things. And so what would you be okay? I'm trying to think of a baseball player that you have not been a fan of that you would be okay to come play for the Rangers if it knew it gave you a chance to win a World Series.
I can't think of a direct comparison. If you remember back to Barry Bonds at the end of his career, he would go to an American League team and DH, and that, and some, I don't think there was ever any real speculation, but people bantered around, well, maybe he could come to the Rangers and be the DH, and he was a polarizing guy, and at the time I remember hearing that, but I wasn't opposed to it. But the main difference in that situation and this is, at that time Barry Bonds, would have been able to add to a team and not necessarily be he would have been a distraction, but he wouldn't have commanded just like the whole room, so to speak.
But LeBron James, when he walks in, he could be playing at 45 years old, just like Tom Brady, and he's going to be the focal point of that team as soon as he touches that.
Exactly. And when I first saw that, when the Athletic reported that was a thing, my first thought was, why would you want to do that? Because I think it would be a huge distraction, for one, and for two, LeBron is, he's still a legitimate player. He's still good. I'm not discounting that, but he he would still demand a max contract, which would limit what you could do with the rest of your roster. And I don't think that he is now that guy.
I don't think he's gonna.
Right.
I don't think and this is gonna sound weird, and then I want to continue with the headline report. I don't think the Mavs are a LeBron James away from a NBA championship.
No, I actually think it'd make their team worse because they would have the rest of their roster would have to get worse to be able to afford him.
Now the Jets may be an Aaron Rodgers away from the Super Bowl. We're going to find that out. But I don't think the Mavericks are a LeBron James away from a Bill O'Brien trophy. But a team that is just a couple of wins away from a Bill O'Brien trophy. Larry, I don't think I said that. I think Bill O'Brien's offense coordinator for the
I have no idea.
Larry O'Brien. It's the Larry O'Brien trophy. The NBA championship finals are 2-1 as the Denver Nuggets lead that series after 2 triple doubles from Djokovic and Jamal Murray. Tonight will be game 3. We'll start to see if the Heat can tie that series up. But game 4 tonight as the Nuggets lead that. In the other game that has the biggest trophy that we can think of, the Stanley Cup finals going on, the Florida Panthers win last night 3-2 in overtime to cut that lead of the series 2-1 versus the Vegas Golden Knights. So that keeps going. A couple other things. Lawrence Hall headline report. Colts cornerback Isaiah Rodgers is being investigated for gambling on the NFL. And Josh, it's out there that he may have even bet on his own team, bet in the NFL, and for very chump change, if you will, like $25 here, $50 here, and not really doing any of that. And when you've looked at what happened to Ridley and getting suspended for a year and all those things, I just don't understand why you can gamble on other things, but you just can't gamble on the NFL. I mean, I'm not going to gamble on how many, kilowatts we're going to sell this month and make sure I tell everybody to turn their lights off so I could get the under. But it blows my mind that guys are still doing this in the NFL.
It is very interesting, and I mean, I get it on one hand. You just want to do like regular dude stuff, and especially with him, it wasn't the type of money, you've been like bought off by mobsters or something like that. But but it's just dumb.
Yeah, it's very dumb, and so Isaiah Rodgers probably going to be sitting out a year. A couple other news that came out again. If you don't want on in your world from a player's perspective in the NCAA, just enter the portal. If you don't like what's going on in your conference, enter the portal. Rumor comes out that the University of Colorado and Arizona are looking to head to the Big 12. Josh, it makes sense from a Deion Sanders coming this way and getting into a high-profile conference. I saw UConn maybe coming as well. There's a lot of talk of just adding Gonzaga, but not long ago was. But it looks like the Pac-12, we always thought California may fly off out into the ocean. It looks like everybody in the Pac-12 is flying more inland as it looks in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the Pac-12 has become a conference that isn't a big deal. I mean, just because the Pac-10 before it and all its alliterations, that with used to those California schools could carry a conference. USC obviously has a long track record. They haven't been, they're coming back around, it appears, but they haven't been good in a while. But just the people trying to get away from that seems funny because it is a Power 5 conference and it's got a long history. So it's funny that it's just kind of falling apart, but it appears to be.
Well, it's bad when there are a couple of teams away from Conference USA needing to switch out and let them be a Group 5 and let them come to a Power 5.
Right. Well, level. I mean, and if they lose teams, they haven't fielded the kind of competition that really should get you that Power 5 status, at least in football.
Well, and you have to start figuring out who do you even go get. It's like we always joke about, let's get rid of Dak. Well, who's going to replace Dak? Let's get rid of McCarthy. Who's going to replace McCarthy? We can let those people go, but who are you going to bring in? Boise State, maybe, hopefully Wyoming. I mean, try to convince North Dakota State with all the Bison, the Bison tradition of winning those NCAA tournaments come in. There's not like there's just a ton. And then somebody said, how much longer do you think West Virginia stays and doesn't think about going back to the ACC because their travel budget is already outrageous. And now you start adding just these other teams. Now you're going to get a few that are closer, but now you've added Utah. You've got to go out to BYU. We're going down to Florida. I just think it's pretty interesting on all this college landscape. And so,
and I've always been just amazed at the football games one Saturday, and all of that, and so I can kind of understand that being the travel not being as big of a deal, but when you move on down, to girls basketball, baseball, softball, where you're going to that you're not necessarily drawing a lot of fans, you're not like selling a ton of tickets, but you got a Tuesday game that you have to go halfway across the country. It doesn't really make sense. I mean,
Right.
like being geographically close, it always did make sense, but now it's kind of the money is just unreal, I guess.
And it's going to continue to get real. And of course, we're going to talk about money with there's big news in golf, but we cannot have a Lawrence Hall headline report and not talk about one of the most dominating streaks and teams that we have seen in a long time. Probably not in women's sports since the Yukon Lady Huskies had gone on a run. Last night, the Oklahoma Lady Sooners winning their third straight NCAA softball championship, 3-1 over Florida State last night. And Josh, 59 in a row, just unbelievable dominance in a program, in a sport that is ESPN's done a really good job. From college baseball to college softball, you got to watch a ton of sports, and I just thought it was a very entertaining. And I enjoyed watching it last night, and I've watched some of the games. But domination in Norman for sure, as the Oklahoma Sooners win another national championship.
Yeah, and it's incredibly impressive because we talk about baseball and softball. Those are sports that if you're expected to lose games. I mean, good teams lose double-digit games. It's not like in football. You see the undefeated, and even one loss can derail your season. But then to just roll through people like that, it truly is hard to comprehend.
And we talk about it. That means for 59 games, you didn't have a bad one. You could have had not a great one and found a way to win. But in 59 straight games, you didn't have a bad one. And I wanted to make this comment because I saw somebody post on Facebook. It's a friend of mine. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But once I say this, they may know it's them. They posted on Facebook and said, man, I wanted to take some kids to watch the game, to watch the College Women's World Series. And she's like, but these tickets are $459. How are these so expensive? To me, that's a good sign for women's softball and for any sport. If the ticket price on StubHub or a third party is at a level that seems expensive, that ought to be a deal. You know what? That's pretty cool because that means our sport is drawing a demand of a $450, $140, $60 ticket.
Right. That is incredibly expensive. It's out of the you can't take your kids, and I know that you can get kind of like I guess bummed that it costs that much, because you want to take your kids, you want to be able to witness stuff. But you are correct. If the market's driving prices like that,
that means your
people
sport
want to be there.
Right. That means your sport is at a demand that is important, and it's great. So congratulations. We have tons more to talk about. We got the Texas Rangers who got a bad doctor's report this week, but still playing good and heading into a series that, again, it's going to be, in my opinion, very important to the Major League, to the Texas Rangers and kind of where we're at. The other thing, we're going to have guests at the bottom of the hour. We've got two stud golfers, one familiar voice in Landry Reed and Sawyer Templeton will join us. They'll talk about their journey to Florida that's coming up soon. And then we've got the Key City Volleyball girls coming back and heading back to the national tournament in Minneapolis. They'll join us at 8 o'clock. So tons to cover. Golf news out the wazoo. Josh will probably try to throw me under the bus. But when we come back, Texas Rangers, first place, playing well, and all the things. Be back with more Hodge Pack right after this. See, and we'll see where it lands. I don't know, Josh. Josh is on. We'll swing that right to you. So you sit there and put Saunders over to that. Easy question, sorry. Thanks. Oh yeah, you came on the road. Yes, we got. Yes, we got Boy was Yeah, he goes down later. You may have to take over for Josh. Well, I've been really good about turning the mic off.
I didn't cough though. Did you get rid of the female talent?
She had a call for a meeting this morning, or says it last night. No, we can't get rid of the good talent.
Yeah, sudden 8 o'clock meeting can't get out of it.
So we're joking that it's a live PJ Tour meeting. Which
Yes, that's what I
I will say though, Tyler Sykes goes, I feel bad for like guys like Rory. He goes, guys like you that you kind of stood by and
that's the whole thing.
we got a little camera still going on here. We'll be back.
You can play commercials or
Yeah, they run our sponsors through.
can they hear us?
Huh?
Can they hear us?
I don't know the answer.
Okay. So,
Send me a text or a tweet if y'all can hear me.
if someone tweeted that, I might see it next year.
Yeah, you got to work on that Twitter stuff.
No, just the other day, I noticed that I had like on my little deal on Twitter, it said I had like inbox or whatever, and I never checked it, and I had a mention, and it was you in like 2022. So it's like
It was important. I'm glad I wasn't dying. Well, welcome back to the Hodgepodge Sports Life and everything in between. It's time for our Texas Rangers report and Major League Baseball run through. Again, things are going well in Arlington, except the doctor's note and the doctor report this week has not been good for the Rangers, but it was a big week. Shout out to Potosi, or not Potosi, but Carini's bringing in Nolan Ryan. Looked like had some folks, friends of ours that were out there. Looked like that was a good time. And probably we may need to see if Nolan can pitch because we've lost one this week. But the Texas Rangers are still in first place. A great run over the last few games, playing well, and it's like, again, why can we not beat Oklahoma Lady Sooners and just never lose? But going on a run, end up losing that final game in the Cardinals series this past week. But the big news this week, Josh, is Jake DeGrom heading to get not the underwear Tommy John, but Tommy John surgery and on the shelf. And, I don't know how much travel ball he played. I don't know if it's back to the travel ball days at 12 and 6 and 8 playing. But unfortunately, you were talking about how many times you may sneeze during the show today. Poor Jake DeGrom and Tony Romo have the same injury bug, I guess you would say.
Yes, I guess so. And there was always concern with Jacob DeGrom, and it's been the past few years that he's had some injury problems, and he has had Tommy John surgery once before. Interestingly enough, though, you mentioned his youth ball. I don't know if he pitched as a kid, but through high school and college, he was a shortstop. He converted to pitch in college. So
I mean, kind of what Lackey, John Lackey was playing first or whatever, and then decided to start pitching at Grayson Collin. Next thing you know, 3-time World Series champ.
Right. So I mean, so his, I guess his career kind of he peaked later, like he was older before he made it to the majors and things like that, just because he did convert to pitcher later in his career, but has been bit by the injury bug. This was, worst case scenario, obviously, not, and I didn't expect, an elbow injury, because that's not been what has plagued him the last few years. He did have Tommy John surgery several years ago. He won 2 Cy Youngs after coming back from Tommy John surgery, so he has recovered from it before. But it was just one of those kind of gut punches. When we finally got that news, it did not surprise me because of the way that he left that game. It appeared to be elbow problems at the time. Sudden drop in velocity, forearm tightness being what they called it at the moment. So there's those things like that usually are the precursor to you're going to miss, a year and a half. So here we are. And really, that's the only downer.
Right.
It's like,
and he's 34 years old. Does the fact that, and Josh again being our baseball insider, does what happened to Verlander give us a little bit of hope that you can bounce back? Verlander, older in his years, had to have surgery, comes back last year, helps the Astros win a World Series, and of course technology and all those things that are a lot better than the first Tommy John surgery. Does that kind of give the Rangers, because we invested, that even though we're not going to see it, and fortunately we're getting the production that we're getting out of the pitching today, and things are going well, does that make you feel, okay, maybe we can start a run, finish 2023, and then know a healthy DeGrom's going to be back repaired?
Well, there's definitely hope. There's no.
But does the confidence of a guy Verlander's age?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. That is still the exception. Verlander is Verlander's a Hall of Famer in a once in a lifetime type talent. So you can't necessarily say that but it does set precedent that it can happen. And I do think that he will come back and pitch well. I don't think that it's going to be the end of his career. And it actually, if you dig into some of his numbers, his velocity, that his average fastball velocity, the past couple of years has been pushing 100. One of the years that he won a Cy Young, I think his average fastball velocity for that year was like 96. When he came back from Tommy John the first time, so he had to build that velocity back up. There's some that say that maybe he should just dial it down and he wouldn't get hurt as much. That's a possibility too.
Well, that wasn't that thoughts of doing what they did to John Smoltz and put him in the bullpen.
Right. Well, there's that thought too. But I'm not a proponent of that. He's it has worked for people in the past, but that would be the way on the back burner if things didn't go well when he came back, that you could, he's useful in that obviously. But what I do think is, if he comes back next year and is able to, be on track, he'd be at the back half of next season is when he'd come back. So, it would, if things continue the way they're going, he would be able to help in a playoff push next year, like a big trade acquisition, So we'll see how it goes. But I guess why I feel like we'll be fine going forward in the long term with Jacob DeGrom is he's not just a rare back and throw it hard guy. He knows how to pitch. his location is probably, he's able to locate his pitches is maybe his biggest strength, even above the fact that he can throw at 100 miles an hour. So even if he loses some velocity through the surgery and has to do things a little bit stepped back, he still has the pitchability to come in and get people out. So in the future, but I'm not really concerned about all that right now, though, because the Rangers are playing well this year, and we can worry about next year as it goes. Side note, he does have there's an automatic trigger for an extra year on his contract if he misses time for Tommy John. So that was specifically in his contract. Now the Rangers have him for another year. What it'll be like when he's 39, I guess, but we'll see. But it's interesting that they put that in the contract.
But 14-4 in our last 18 games. We've got the lead over the Astros by 5. And Josh, we talked about this earlier in the year, heading to Houston and making it an important series, even though it was early in the season for the Rangers. I think this weekend's Tampa Bay series is very similar to that. Right now, they are two of the best teams in Major League Baseball, and I think if you could flex a game for Sunday Night Baseball, I think they would maybe want the Rangers and the Rays. Now the problem is there's not a ton of people in the stands for the Rays game, but this weekend is a series for the Rangers that, in my opinion, is one that, again, you got the DeGrom news. We can move on from it because you know what? We're still playing good. We're still coming to Florida with every bit of a confidence to win this series. And that's the other thing. I wanted to take a picture of that stat of the number of series that the Rangers have won in a row where they've won the series, and they're really.
Oh yes, they are on a roll. And as you mentioned, this is the two best records in baseball. They have 2 more losses than Tampa Bay, so they're a little behind Tampa Bay, but that's after Tampa Bay's truly historic start. They've been, playing about even as far as their record goes. So there's and Tampa Bay's in a different division, so we don't have to worry about Tampa Bay as far as like winning the division goes. But what I do think is like we have to be as fans somewhat tempered in this is still a June series. So if for some reason the Rangers go into Tampa this weekend and get swept, the season's not over. There's still plenty left. But to your point, if you go in there and take 2 or 3, then you're feeling pretty good about yourself. And even even if it's a 1-2, where if you win a game in Tampa at their place against the best team in baseball, it shows that you belong. And so, but I'm excited about it. We'll see. One thing also to note as far as like how this series is being perceived is Tampa called up moved back, I guess, their number 1 starter, McClanahan, to pitch today when he was scheduled to pitch yesterday. So they flexed their rotation to match up with the Rangers, that's always a sign that people care about what's going on and are trying to win a game.
Well, and the other reason I think it's a good stretch and an important stretch, you get to go down to Tampa, play 3, and then turn around and come back home and play the Angels and have a little homestand this coming week. To me, that's another big deal too as well.
This month is
a stretch of games where, hey, we'll go play Tampa Bay. Going to be tough, but then we get to come back home and sleep in our bed for a whole week and play at home. And you got the Angels, which is always a fun one. I'm sure people are trying to catch and want to watch Ohtani pitch and Ohtani hit and all those things.
Right.
And so those are big. Other baseball news we want to talk outside. The big news was that Aaron Judge, who's having this monster fun year, runs through a fence and went on the 10-day DL for a toe. He's out. And Josh, we talked about last week how the AL Central was not an issue, not a need, not a problem. Every team in that division is now below 500. And so they're going to be very similar to talks when we talked a few years ago. Should an NFL team get in by winning their division, being under 500? I'm sure there's a chance that's going to change, but there's also a chance that doesn't change.
I assume that Minnesota will probably get back over 500, but they're not playing very well. And what is disappointing, I guess, about that, really from the Rangers fan perspective, is the Rangers are going to need to trade for some pitching. Bullpen especially, but now with the Grom going down, there might be at least the temptation to look at trading for a starter also. If the right deal comes along, and as long as Minnesota, Cleveland, and Chicago are like kind of hanging in there, and no one's running away with it, they'll be less likely to trade away somebody. So that makes the trade market a little bit tighter. You're going to have to pay more in prospects to try to trade for somebody. So that's from a Ranger centric thing. I wish the Twins would just roll off 10 in a row and bury the Indians and the White Sox. So maybe the
put
White
more
Sox
people in the trade pool.
Yeah, put more people to be traded.
Right.
But right now with the White Sox and Cleveland hanging in there, it makes it to where they're not going to be as likely to deal somebody. So that's like my very Ranger centric take on that. But the Royals are still really bad, so they got some people to trade to.
Yeah, when you're everybody in your division is below 500 and you're 12 and a half out,
Yeah.
things are not going well. But what is going well is for a number of golfers here in the Abilene area, they're heading to Florida next week to play in the Bear Trap, where the Hondas play at PJ National. When we come back, we're going to have familiar voice Landry Reed and a new voice, Sawyer Templeton, will join us in a moment for our Big Country Electric My Town segment, part 1, right after this.
and under, 49.
Nice. Okay. So did you? So did you? So you had to do that. Sawyer, how was yours? Was the stretch? I mean, how did you get? Obviously, you got enough points. How was that?
It was really.
What'd you do with your trophy? Did you get a trophy?
No, we got medals.
Okay, nice. Do you have them just hung all over your room? There you go. So, who's your? Just curious. Everybody we see golf. You know, we've got Butch Harmon and all those people that teach. So, who's your golf coach, Sawyer?
My dad and Coach Brandon.
Okay, your dad, Coach Brendan. Is your dad hard on you?
Sometimes.
That's okay. He's in the room. We'll ask him. Make sure because I got a feeling he probably is. What about who's your golf teacher?
My dad and Jimmy.
There you go. And that's Jimmy Tidwell, and of course Brendan at the country club as well. What your drive? So what? I'm gonna see if I can remember. Driving is that what you're best at? That's what you kind of hang your hat on. Sawyer, what do you love to do? Drive, chip, or putt?
Chip and putt.
There you go. Those are important. Those are important because they say you drive for dough and do what?
Putt for the.
Yeah, you drive for show. Chip. Yeah, we'll get that story in a moment, a little bit later. That'll probably go into the podcast deal. So, what do you love about golf most, Landry? It's different. Of course, golf has been in the news all this week. We won't get into your thoughts on live and all that because we don't know if we have enough time for that. Because I got a feeling Josh is going to bust my chops a little bit later about this. But what do you love about golf?
I mean, it's kind of different from a lot of other sports. That's why I kind of like it.
So do you love? I mean, do you love the fact that? I mean, we love team sports, and we love the Ryder Cup, and we love all the things. But how much do you like knowing that you're the one that's in control of everything?
I mean, I like that.
I mean, if nobody passes you the ball in basketball, you can't hit the game-winning shot.
Nope.
But in golf, you've got a chance to hit the game-winning shot every time. Sawyer, what do you love about golf?
It's a lot harder than the other sports.
It is very hard, and we've got a whole list of hardest sports, and golf is way down the list. Trust me, both of your dads are good golfers. I've played with them. I'm still trying to figure out a way to be good at golf. I'm a lot better than I was. But the golf thing is, no matter how old you are, you can still keep getting better at it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can still keep getting better at it all the time. Now, so do you have a favorite professional golfer, Sawyer?
Yeah, Jordan.
Good answer. One, he's from Texas. B, he didn't jump to the live. And C, he's a really good dude. So you're a big Jordan Spieth fan. What about you?
John Rahm.
John Rahm. Okay. John Rahm looks like he could play outside linebacker for the Cowboys. But that's a true story. He looks like he could play football. So, all right. So you've gone to South Carolina. You've played in a lot of different golf tournaments. What are you looking forward to most about this national trip and getting to go play? Now, where you're going to play, they play the Honda Classic. Hopefully they keep playing it. They need a sponsor. Hopefully they playing PJ National, Jack Nicklaus course, where a tour event's been there for a number of years. What are you looking forward to most about Florida?
Okay, so my dad promised me that if I win those points, he said, I know this isn't related to golf, but I love crab, and I get unlimited crab in Florida.
Unlimited crab in Florida. Okay, there you go. King crab. So what about the golf part? I guess my deal is, and those of you that want to know why you should play golf, I cannot go to Globe Life and hit batting practice without a whole lot of money. You're going to go play. You guys are going to go play where a PGA Tour event is. We can go do that. And some of them are expensive, but some of them aren't. You're qualifying to do this. You're basically like the Michael Blocks of Abilene. Your parents can explain that later, maybe. But so, Sawyer, what are you looking forward to about Florida?
I don't know.
You're just glad to be there, right? You're kind of like Butler in the national championship, NCAA. There you go. You're just kind of glad to be there. So how many kids? So we invited you to, because again, Landry, you've been on before, but there's a number of kids. There's 13 kids out of the big country, 9 going to Abilene, 9 from Abilene. I want to ask you, how cool was it last night? Abilene Country Club put on a fundraising tournament for you guys. And there's a picture. We've got it on our Facebook page as well. But what did that mean having guys and ladies donate money to help you out to go to Florida?
It's just helping kids out, like it's just giving them help to get like better, you know. To,
I mean, is it cheap going to Florida?
no.
No, it's not cheap going to Florida. We're seeing these girls a little bit later on. They're going to go to Minneapolis to play volleyball. It takes money to do these things. And so,
Yes.
but how cool it is it being part of a community that cares about you guys. And I don't know how much money you raised, but you had people spending their money to help you out. How cool is that?
That's pretty cool to me.
Who was on your team last night, Sawyer? Do you remember?
My uncle, my grandpa, and my aunt.
Oh, there you go. Family team. Who was on your team, Landry?
Me, my dad, Travis Brown, Nancy Brown, and Brendan Beal.
Whoa, loaded. So I'm just curious, and if we have to look to the dads, who won last night?
We tied for second. I did a chip off between. I think he also qualified to go, Grayson Finley.
Okay.
And so we did it behind 14 Green and Abilene Country Club, and he had to turn around, so I got to go last. So he turned around, and then I almost hit to the
So y'all got second in the tournament?
Yep.
Who won the thing last night?
Keith Kimball, Greg Allen.
Okay, nice. So how did your team do yesterday?
Not very well.
Hey, that's all right. That's okay. Some days it happens. All right. So excited for Florida. You go on June 19th. Sawyer, what are you going to do getting ready for it? What do you need to work on most?
My irons and my
All those. I would work on all those because they're going to come into play. There you go. Every aspect of the game, work on it this week. Landry, what do you feel like is good in your game right now, but you want to work on in the next week?
My irons and driver are really good right now, but I need to work on that next week.
There you go. Get all those in, and you're going to be competing in your own age group, I'm assuming. Like Sawyer doesn't have to beat you. You don't have to beat Sawyer. And so, hey, I appreciate y'all coming in. I know it was a little different, and so know that we'll be rooting for you here in Abilene and Hodgeback. Y'all have fun in Florida, and hope to have you back, and you can tell us what it was like. All right, you bet. There you go. That's our first Big Country Electric My Town segment, part 1. Landry Reed and Sawyer Templeton heading to Florida along with 11 other Big Country folks as they compete again in the Under Armour Junior National Golf Tournament. Exciting, great sport. Can't encourage you enough, kids, to get into golf. It's a sport you can play forever. When we come back, we'll talk to Josh and we'll kind of dive into some of that golf news. And we'll also look at a sports list that we'd mentioned earlier. Boxing's tough, but is it the hardest sport? I don't know about that. We'll be back right after this. don't necessarily agree with those. Boxing is tough, but my question number one, I guess I'll make this the Missy's bag question, is what do you think of lists? Because everybody does them, whether it's the greatest of all time, top four, favorite places to eat, all the things. What's your thoughts on lists?
Well, any list is only as good as the person who makes it. Is my first thought, because you can pull up, like you said, like places to eat. You can pull up lists of like, top places to eat and name your city. You Google it before you go there, wherever you're going on vacation. You'll look that up, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. So it's only as good as the person who's doing it. When you sent me this list earlier this week, I opened it and looked at it, and I thought to myself, and I probably said it via the text message, this is unequivocally stupid. Like, I don't know who DraftKings post this, says that ESPN made the list. I don't know who at ESPN did, but for example, why I think this is stupid, there are things on here that are like boxing, they say, is number one, but wrestling and martial arts are farther down the list. So, like, what's the difference in boxing and martial arts? I mean, like, you're.
Well, would you not think martial arts might be more difficult than boxing? Because in boxing, you're going to use your fist and you got to bob and weave. And all that.
You're not like jump kicking people.
But in like martial arts, you've got to learn, wax on, wax off, block things,
so
leg sweep.
And one thing that really caught my attention is they have up here gymnastics after tennis, which is, I guess, 10th, is gymnastics. And then as you go down the list, you're looking at the different things that are on there. You're moving along, and now I lost it because I clicked on it and it got bigger. But cheerleading is at the bottom of the list, like bottom 10. Isn't gymnastics involved in cheerleading? I mean, don't you do gymnastics when you're cheerleading? I'm not saying that you just do only gymnastics, but there's 50 places separating the two. Like, that just seems weird to me.
Well, and I guess to me, what I would like to know, if we could reach out to the people that actually created this list, would be what are you considering making things difficult? These kids right a while ago talking about golf. Golf is difficult. Now, is it hard to play, hit it, and whatever? Is it difficult to be successful at it? Yes. There are certain things that you can be successful at and obviously work at. But what the level of difficulty they're trying to say, because they've got endurance, strength, power, speed, agility, flexibility, and so all those things of trying to figure out what these things bring and what they think what makes them difficult. I mean, to me, and you were making a very good point about when we were talking the other day about Jordan trying to become a really good golfer as opposed to becoming a really good boxer, two totally different things.
Well, right, and that's where I guess I need some explanation on the list, because there's some inconsistencies, I guess, because they do have golf rated way, way down on the list. It's still ahead of equestrian, though. All right, so just me, but I see a lot of 70-year-old men hitting a golf ball. I rarely see one taking horses over jumps. I mean, like, if you're just talking physical need to be like in shape, I would say equestrian would have to be above golf. Now, I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the last thing about equestrian. I don't know the first thing about it. I have no idea what you have to do. I mean, I've ridden a horse, but I've never tried to jump a red pole. I don't know, but it just seems kind of weird. But to the point that we had when we were talking about this is, I do think it's very funny, because they have tie down roping, calf roping is on the list, which I do think is an incredibly difficult athletic event, because you have to ride a horse, swing a rope, catch the calf, get off, have the physical speed to get to the calf, pick it up, throw it on the ground, and then tie it. So there's a lot of athleticism that goes into that. And then, just thinking about that, now I'm trying to find on the list because this is kind of small. Calf roping.
Yeah, calf roping's down at the bottom, midway down.
Yeah. All right. That's so. Yeah. It's
Ironically, calf roping is 2 above bull, bareback, and bronc
right.
riding.
Which so that's why I just think the list is just goofy. I don't know who did it, but to the point that I'm saying, like to be a good calf roper, those guys have to be quick on the ground, and I know it's not a long endurance type of thing or whatever, but it's athleticism. But I think that you took a guy that let's say a professional boxer and one of the more athletic professional calf ropers and cross trained them. I don't know that boxer ever ropes a calf.
Right.
Like never. Like if he's for 6 months, your job is to learn how to rope this calf. If he doesn't have the background of knowing how to ride, knowing the things that go with it, I don't know that he can just suddenly figure that out. I do think you take an athletic guy and train him in boxing, they could kind of figure it out. Now I'm not saying they're going to go, win the welterweight belt or whatever, but like I think they figure it out.
And I think that's the other thing that's interesting on this list. I'm not saying boxing's not tough, but you start looking when you start, and obviously they do this because it creates conversation and all these things. And I'm anxious to see what the girls think, who will be kicking off hour number 2 with us here in a moment, as volleyball is number 21. And that means volleyball is number 21 and is above, Josh, those is above, volleyball is above all those bull riding and rodeo events that we just mentioned.
To my point, I'm not a good volleyball player, but I could go play some volleyball recreationally. I wouldn't even want to get close to trying to ride a bull.
No.
I mean,
Or a calf.
No. Oh no. I mean, it's just
rope a calf, not ride a calf.
I mean, I could just sit on it. I don't know.
Yeah, we used to. My parents used to have a Great Dane who was about the equivalent.
But so I mean, I just think that it's just a very weird thing. I guess we need to post the link to this so people can see all the things that go with it. I find it funny that they have fishing as an event, and it's the very last easiest one. Which I mean, I don't disagree with that as far as the like physical ability, but it also has like mental aptitude is one of them, and the mental aptitude it has for fishing is like one of the lowest in mental aptitude category, which I find funny also because there's one thing I do know about like professional bass fishing, like being a recreational bass fisherman myself. Those guys know so much about like water clarity and what color to use and what bait to use on this day versus this day. I mean, so just I found that laughable. Like those guys know, like they have encyclopedias of knowledge of things like that. That I'm like, what
they don't go and come back empty-handed.
Like
exactly.
So I mean, I found it very, very entertaining. The listener should look at Hodge's Twitter page and pick that up because it's worth a laugh. And just thinking about how they compare, I do think it's laughably stupid though.
Right. So check out the Hodge Pack on Twitter at the Hodge Pack. I just retweeted the list in a couple of formats. You could check it out. When we come back, we'll ask these as we go part 2 of our Big Country Electric My Town segment, as the Key City Volleyball girls will be in here talking about their second straight trip to the national tournament in Minneapolis. So when we come back, hour number 2 kicks off with some volleyball. Welcome back to the Hodgeback Sports Life and everything in between. We got selfies happening. We've got probably somebody's already Snapchatted this morning. And really, I hope y'all Snapchatted it and some of your other friends that are still sleeping. We appreciate y'all being up. I hope their notifications are on and they're waking you up. And so, again, welcome back to the Hodgeback. It's time for part 2 of our Big Country Electric My Town segment as we highlight a local player, coach, or program. And today we're highlighting a local program as we get ready to. We just had some golfers that are heading to nationals, and now we've got some girls that are heading to nationals. They were here last year. The Key City V13 volleyball girls representing all sorts of schools. We've got a few that are going to talk. We got a few that are just going to laugh, and we'll put them over there in the corner somewhere. But real quick, we're going to go through those that are going to talk. Danae, we're going to start with you. Danae, where do you go to school? What grade are you going into?
I go to Craig and I'm going to 8th grade. I go to Wiley West.
Nobody knows what your name is.
Corlin.
Corlin, there you go.
My name is Taylor Ray. I go to Wiley and I'm going to be a freshman.
Oh, there you go.
I'm Annalise and I go to Wiley and I'm going to be in 8th grade.
So, all right, I was trying to. All right, so you go to Wiley West. Are you the only one that's going to be a freshman in this group right here? All right, exciting. Okay. All right, so last year, y'all came out here and you qualified for the Nationals. You were heading to Minnesota. Is the national tournament in the same place, Taylor Ray? Y'all going back to Minneapolis or Minnesota?
No, we went to Indianapolis.
Oh, Indiana last year. Okay, where are we going this year?
Minneapolis.
Okay, so they moved to Appleses. All right, so next year they'll find another. Maybe they'll go to Annapolis in Maryland next year. So, all right, we're playing volleyball. Most of us are going to be either freshmen or 8th graders next year. And so, all right, now there's certain questions I'm going to ask, and I've decided one I'm not going to. But what got you in? Again, Taylor Ray, Annalise was on here last year. What got you, Danae, into volleyball?
Watching my older sister growing up, I originally played softball, but I quit that to just focus on volleyball.
So are you straight volleyball? Don't play anything else?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. What about you, Corlin?
I feel like I got really inspired by my older sister and my mom because they played and they both went to state and walking in college.
Okay. So sounds like family folks. All right. What about you, Annalise? I know your mom is coached it, played it, all the things, but what made you play volleyball?
I don't know. I really like the competitiveness of it. Like, just like I started playing whenever I was like 6, and
You're 5 years behind Saw Dog. He started playing golf at 1. Just kidding, but go ahead.
so probably the competitiveness of it and like how.
Now you do more things. You're not straight volleyball, correct?
Yes. Sir.
So what else do you play?
I play basketball and I do cheer.
Okay. So how do you think basketball helps you with volleyball and volleyball helps you with basketball?
Probably like the leadership aspect of it, like being a leader, like when I'm playing volleyball and when I'm playing basketball.
All right, I'm a former coach, so I'm going to throw this out. How important do you think the footwork is? Because there's got to be some footwork involved in volleyball that can transfer over to basketball.
It's definitely very important, I think. Like, it's kind of the same. Like whenever you're doing an approach and whenever you're going for a layup, it's pretty much the same.
What about you, Taylor Ray? I mean, do you play other things besides volleyball, or are you straight volleyball?
This year. I'm just gonna be volleyball this year.
So straight volleyball in high school, heading into your freshman year. Okay, so let's talk about what are the things that, as you get ready for this national tournament, how did you qualify? Did you have to win? Because there's certain things you just pay and they let you go, but you actually had to qualify to this national tournament. So, Danae, tell me a little bit, what did y'all have to do to qualify? We talked to the golfers earlier. They had to earn so many points and they advanced. What does Key City have to do to qualify to head to Minneapolis?
Well, we would have had to qualify in Lone Star, but we didn't do that. So with the regionals, we didn't qualify in that, but it was like a triple down. Yeah, it seemed like it had a bid, so they just gave it to us.
So, okay, so now this is a great story. All right, this is an opportunity for y'all. So you you earn the bid probably like an NCAA, and we probably should have your dad in here or your dad in here, somebody that knows what I'm about to talk about. So stay with me. In NCAA tournaments, sometimes they don't win their conference championship, but they get a bid to the tournament because they've had a good season. So basically, you got a bid to the national tournament because of the season that y'all had regular season wise. Okay, so in that, you've got an opportunity to take advantage of this gift, if you will. So what are you looking forward to, and who's coaching you this year? I know we had the coach last year. Who's coaching you? We'll go Taylor Ray, you're the oldest. Who's y'all's coach, and kind of go from there. Oh, coach is back at the back. Oh,
No,
yeah, coach.
No. Taylor is not the host.
Oh, never mind. Oh, I thought we had a coach. So Taylor Ray, talk about your coach and kind of what y'all been doing leading up to get this another chance.
Well, our coaches are Coach Monk and Coach Canada, but I don't know, it's been different this year, but they've been working us really hard, so we're excited.
So what do you think? And we'll go, Corlin, you can talk about this. You've seen state championships won by family members and all those things. What do you think it's going to take because obviously you're not playing a bunch against slaps. The teams you're going to play this in the next, when we'll talk about when the date is, in Minnesota are going to be really good. So what are some things in volleyball? In football, don't turn the ball over. Don't let them out rebounding. You have a chance to win. What do you have to do in volleyball are some keys to winning a tournament like this?
Well, volleyball is a really big team sport, so you have to learn to come together as a team and to get over your own mistakes. Because once one person gets down, it can affect the whole team, and it just kind of spreads. But if you keep it up, then everybody stays up.
So, Danae, stemming off kind of what Corlin said, I agree with that because, again, in baseball, it can kind of happen too. If you get, I've played softball with your dad, you can get it a long way, but that's neither here nor there. But like if somebody has an error at second, it can kind of create, but you may never get the ball hit to you again. In volleyball, if that error happens, whether it's a serve going to the net or you keep getting tangled in the net or your spikes are terrible or whatever, I don't know a whole lot of volleyball terminology, but I know serve, spike, and dig or whatever. But in the labo or whatever that other person's called. Libero, not bad. Libero. It sounds like it should be a car. But anyway, so what are some other things to limit? What are the mistakes that are made in volleyball that cost you?
Probably not talking on the court, which we don't really do, to be honest.
So when you say that though, Danae, you mean like communication, like communicating, okay, like in basketball, you need to talk, hey, somebody's cutting, somebody's doing that. So what's the communication like in volleyball?
You definitely have to call the ball because we do get mixed up a lot and who's going to take it.
Like a pop fly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, what?
Like a pop fly, in baseball or softball, if both of you run into the ball and you run into each other, no communication, the ball's on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this tournament, how many, do y'all have any idea how many you're competing against?
64.
So 64 teams competing, very similar to March Madness. Now they got 68. But you got 64 teams that you're competing against. And when is the tournament?
Next week.
So you head to Minnesota next week. Do you already know, is it bracket play? Is it pool play? If you win one, you keep going. If you lose, you're done. What is the scenario for the tournament?
I think last year, like our first 3 days were pool, and then the last day was bracket.
So you pool play it and get your chance to get in, basically, and then that goes from there. So how many of you this is going to be your first time to Minnesota? A lot of people. Okay, there you go. Everybody, have y'all been, Taylor Ray, have you been to Minnesota before?
I don't know.
You don't know if you've been to Minnesota?
Nope.
Wow. Okay, we're going to work on geography for Wiley. Okay, you don't know if you've been to Minnesota. We'll talk about that. Have you been to Minnesota?
I have not.
Okay, you have not. We'll talk about it off air, Taylor Ray, if you've been to Minnesota or not. We'll find that out. So what are you looking forward to about competing? Because here's the deal. We've seen the Little League kids that they got to go compete in Williamsport with the World Series. These kids and golfers, those 13 kids are going to need to go play. Your brother Ty is going to be one of those that's getting to go play golf at the national level. What does that mean, getting to play? And we'll go with you, Danae, since so far you haven't been afraid to talk. Danae, what What does it mean getting to play at this level at such a young age?
It feels really good. We're definitely getting more opportunities than other kids at a young age, and it's really fun.
All right, Corlin, I'm going to put you, Taylor Ray, and Annalise on the spot. What can you take? And you say you're going to be an eighth grader going to where next year?
Violence.
What can you take from what you do here to make Wiley West volleyball better? Annalise, you got an answer for that?
I would say probably just like whenever like we go back for like school, I'd say just like probably like helping people like I don't know, like leading on the court and like helping them like
Do you have an answer, Taylor Ray?
Kind of going off of what Anna said, I think we have a lot more court knowledge than like our teammates back in school. So I think if we just like help them out with that, it'll make the whole team better.
I agree. Do you have an answer, Corlin? Hesitation tells me no. That's okay. All right, so I do appreciate y'all coming in. I appreciate the people in the back Snapchatting. I hope you're following the Hodge Pack on Twitter and on our YouTube and Facebook channel. You don't have a Twitter, you should get a Twitter. Twitter is very important. It's a lot better than TikTok or anything else. But anyway, thank y'all for coming in. When do y'all leave? So leave the 12th, which is that's a Monday. Exciting. Good job. So have a good one. Do you know who you play first yet? Okay, so you'll find that out. Key City Volleyball Girls heading to Minneapolis. Some for the first time, some maybe for the first time. We don't know. But when we come back, Josh and I will start knowing half the battle, and we're going to dive into some of the biggest news that has been not just in golf sports history, but in sports history when we come back with more Hodgepack, Sports Life, and everything in between.
That hurt.
But it's not live. I think that's the thing. I still get like I hope it goes away, and I fully expect that it does. And I think that's where the distinction here is. This is PJ Tour, the EP World Tour, and the PIF. Very different from live. All I'm trying to do is protect what the PJ Tour is, what the PJ Tour stands for, and I think it will continue to do that. So like going forward, I hope that there's, there may be a team element, and you're going to see.
Welcome back to the Hodge Sports Life and everything in between. You hear Rory McIlroy at a press conference at the RBC Canadian Open, which is underway. Round 2 is already kicked off. And Josh, I mentioned as we were heading to break that it is Tuesday was probably one of the biggest days in sports history, not just golf history, but the sports history that took place this past week, as the announcement came across on social media that the PGA Tour has decided, along with the DP, which is the European Tour, to merge and join forces or merge with the PIF, which is the big fundraiser money backing of the Live Golf Tournament or Golf Tour. And it looks like all the people are coming back together. And so it's been a very interesting few days. I've reached out to my buddies, Paul Tesori and some others, that they were very shocked. Rory got a call early that morning. He talks about that in the press conference. But a lot of these guys are upset. The guys that stayed, the guys that are coming back. We do not know what's going to happen. But Josh, this past week, I don't know if crow's the right word for. I don't know what the right word, but it was a take aside, and I'm looking for my sound bit for the rest of this segment. But it was a very interesting day. And do you agree? A most interesting day in sports history as a whole, not just golf.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. You're very golf centric, and I appreciate that. It's interesting. It's not a nothing deal, but I still think that if you poll the average sports fan, most of them didn't even know what the Live was. So I don't think that it really was that big of a deal. Now, very big to golf, and you are a golf fan, so I get why you feel that way. But
see, I would disagree in the fact that other people outside of the golf world paid attention to it because of the early disagreements that Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, had literally a year ago this tournament, talking about those guys are gone. We're not going to pay. They're going to be they're basically being punished, standing behind the 9/11 and all that stuff. And then now a year later, changing their mind.
I agree with, but I think the average sports fan doesn't even know about it. That you asked that question.
I would throw that out, and I would disagree.
Okay. We have no way to poll. So
okay.
I'm going to claim to be right.
Okay. Those that are watching on Facebook, how many of you, and I guess it may be different because they're going to know, would agree or disagree that that's taking place? Now, let us know. Tweet us at the Hodgeback or post on our socials. But
I just think the average sports fan doesn't really care about golf, to be perfectly honest. I don't think that they even could name 10 PGA golfers. You can name 100.
Do you think it's the same level as hockey?
If you poll not in Abilene, yes, maybe above hockey, but like if you poll the average American sports fan, hockey is probably more popular than golf.
Because I'm in that boat of naming 10 hockey players.
I don't know that I can name 10 hockey players.
I can name 10 over the span of the sport's history. I could not do it of today's players. I know there's a something Crosby guy and is over checking still playing.
Wayne Gretzky's retired.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr are no longer playing, or Gordie Howe, even though as old as he was, if he was still alive, he probably could be playing today. But I think what we see here is that it's totally changed. And even though they've made this decision, it reminds me now they're going to have the money. They've got over $100 million or $100 billion invested in it. And they've got obviously unlimited amount of funds. So money is going to not be the issue of making things work. But they've got this great idea that we're going to come together and make it all good. But what they don't understand is it's going to be worse, in my opinion, working through. We said that being at the Masters Champions Dinner this year was going to be interesting. I think everything, from my understanding, what I've read, the 2023 PGA Tour season is going to go like normal. The LIV has 7 tournaments left. It's going to go like normal. But deep down, even though they've come together and they say we got dinner plans, we're meeting at Potosi Live tonight for dinner, nobody really knows what that's going to look like when everybody arrives for dinner.
Oh, I mean, I agree with that. There's definitely some contentious moments bound to happen and hard feelings on both sides. So it's very high drama if you're into the golf thing, which I don't think most people are.
And so in all this, and again, I think where we're at, I think, and maybe our group of friends have a pretty strong opinion. Obviously, I have a strong opinion. And I will say this. I had an opinion of leaving the PGA Tour, not necessarily, I guess, I don't know if it was for the money or whatever, but leaving what had treated you well and leaving the success and all those things that you've done. My question is, in the same way as they say, as these new guys come back, and I'm about to play your sounder so you can do what you need to do to me. But in that, when the guys that left, it opened up, if you will, jobs for some of these other guys to be on tour. In the same way, LIV opened up for Brooks Koepka's brother Chase to have a spot to do something. Now, what's that going to look like now that they start bringing everybody back to the dinner table? Jay Monahan's still going to be one of the head honchos. They've still got a lot of stuff to go over with their board.
If he remains a head honcho just from a strictly business side with the way that this has gone, then that's a problem. Like, he needs to be gone. Is not, and that's more on the people side, I guess. But even on the business side, he needs to be gone. But that's for another day.
Right. But again, they don't know what it's going to look like. They say there may be some stuff. You heard Rory and his sounder that he hopes the LIV goes away. He still hates the LIV. Now, one of the things that has taken place, and so just because I know that this is going to be part of it, it is time to merge. Very fitting to merge these two, merge these this segment together with. So, Josh, I'm going to just stop and let you.
Okay. Well, yeah. What you need to learn from this, and Hodge, I'm sorry, like this is like, I mean, this isn't like, square peg in a round hole. This is like the puzzle pieces go straight together. This is for you, and for everyone else out there, because it doesn't just apply to this. It's just across the line. But you have to be careful where you plant your flag. Rory, what he was talking about, I think that's a perfect example of this. When you take a stand on a hill, and that you've got to be really, really certain what that hill is, because a year later that might look a little bit different. And you have to eat crow, as you were talking about. And there's no better example than Rory and what he was talking about with well, this isn't the LIV, because he was very strong about not wanting to take the LIV money, and it was bad people and bad human rights and all of this stuff. Well, now you're taking the LIV money. You can say it's not the LIV. The LIV's going away. You're taking the LIV money. It's the PIF. That's where the money came from. So if you're truly principled, you're not playing in the PGA anymore. So you planted a flag, and you personally, Hodge, planted this flag, which I never understood. I never understood, just like, you're wearing a shirt that says PGA right now. I never understood why, as someone who is an employee of the PGA, a member of the PGA, why do they have loyalty to that to not go somewhere else if they're going to get paid more money? I've never understood people's argument in that. Now, I get the argument of the money comes from bad sources and things like that. That you have to weigh that, but I don't get, like, if Big Country Electric Co-op wanted to pay you more money than Taylor Electric, and you could go over there and do that, no one's going to be like, well, man, he sold out Taylor Electric because Big Country is going to pay him twice as much. So. Like, I just don't get that whole thing.
Well,
but that's.
I will say this, and I've been trying to figure out how to word this. Obviously, sometimes I say stuff that's goofy, but in that, the blood money that they kept referring to, I'll be honest with you, I got more educated from other folks saying, well, there's a lot of money spent here that you could label blood.
Right, there is.
So that part, the 9/11 stuff, terrible. Okay, awful. The Jimmy Doon guy that is part of the PJ stuff had friends that passed away, coworkers that he passed away. He wasn't there because I think he was off to something. Anyway, so a terrible story, terrible event. I didn't look at it as that. My biggest struggle of it was. And again, I've always gone back to the life-changing money. I have never had life-changing money, ever. So in that, when they left to get a huge amount of more money, when they did that, knowing what you leave behind, you bring up Taylor Electric, Big Country, okay? But you're going to very similar things. But the difference is, when you leave the PGA Tour, there was a chance that you no longer get to be a part of playing the Masters, playing a Ryder Cup, playing in the majors, and continuing. And who's to say that they weren't going to get to maybe still qualify for the PGA or for the Golf Hall of Fame? Those were the things that I had a hard time with, of people leaving and knowing there's a chance that you couldn't do that.
Okay, but that's
anymore.
still just a tradition. I mean, you think about it, anybody who takes a job, okay, you're just working here in Abilene somewhere, and you get contacted by a recruiter, by a headhunter. They have a job, but like Brent Schroeder recently, he used to work here in Abilene, and he ended up moving to Lubbock. He and his family moved. So like they did what they thought was best for them, and they moved towns. So now. If they're having a cookout on Friday night, they can't come over. Right. And so you made a choice, and then and you did what was best for you. So it's just, it's just like all right, so you can't go to the break room at your old job anymore because you work at a different place. I get it. It's the Masters, but it's still, you weigh those things and you make a choice based on how much you're getting paid to do your job. So people move, people go to different places because of that, so you make new friends, you get new habits, you all that stuff. So I never saw it as, I didn't get this like vitriolic, and it wasn't just you. So like vitriolic hate of like, oh, you're ruining the PGA. Why do you care about the PGA? The Masters is going to happen whether the PGA's there or not.
Well, I think a lot of it was, and again, one of the things that's come out of this is that the litigation that both have been involved in are ceasing. They're going away. And so that's...
Yeah, because neither one of them wanted anyone digging through the...
No, they wanted their closet to stay shut. Yeah. Right. But I do think, and I know you mentioned it, and it's similar to the NBA. In our world right now, even if LeBron James did come to the Mavericks, which the majority of the people in this area are Mavs fans with a sprinkle of Spurs fans. We don't have a whole lot of Rocket fans this up far north, if you will. I think if LeBron James went to the Mavs, the majority of the people probably would not be that excited. But I do think, and you mentioned the average fan, I think because some of the big name guys were involved in this, like Phil, like Rory, like DJ and all
Well, it's
that.
very important to the golf
I
world.
think it makes it. I think it's interesting, but I do think that it's far from over. They've made plans, but what they really what I was going to get a while ago, and we'll go to the commercial and then we'll come back, is that we've talked about going to the Kentucky Derby. We've talked about going and entering a car, me, you, and Misty, in the Buffalo Challenge, which we'll talk about that when we come back from break. But it sounds like a great idea. And it sounds like a great idea to merge these people together. But in the grand scheme of things, they don't know what it's going to be and do not know what it's going to look like when it comes to that first tournament in Hawaii next year as they try to set the schedule for 2024.
And to wrap it up, that's why you have to be careful where you plant your flag. Because if you choose a hill to die on, you at least want to be proud of it in the end. And this one has a lot of people that I think are now having to second guess.
Knowing is half the battle, and some companies that are finding that out as well. When we come back, we'll talk about get ready for the weekend, and we'll talk a little bit about the Buffalo Run and Buffalo Challenge and all the things right after this.
In the big country, Keith Glover here with this
I just think
Resources
it's,
Incorporated. I'm here to let you know about our
very
document construction
interesting.
and paper shredding business. Our services
Very
include
interesting.
routine pickup,
You know,
purchase,
how
half at 2, happy hour 4 to 5. And of course, we jump aboard the largest carpool in West Texas with the Drive at 5 at 5. Country music news, Larry Marvel's Down on the Farm, and the best country music ever made and played, guaranteed. Greg Austin, afternoons 2 to 7, right here on the Country Jungle.
You out next week? You out next week? The week after?
We'll be on vacation. Welcome back to the Hodgeback Sports Life and everything in between as we get ready to head into the weekend. A lot of stuff going on tonight. Mike Ryan going to be at Potosi Live. I'll be there checking it out as we're hanging out at the Potosi Live studio. Don't forget, probably still some tickets available. Check out PotosiLive.com. They've got a lot of events coming up this summer. Of course, next week, Summer Jam, Giovanni and the Higher Guns Thursday night. They got Who's Your Daddy free comedy event Friday night. Unfortunately, Clint Black not being able to be there. And then Saturday, of course, Wade Bowen. You'll want to be there for that as Wade Bowen will be kicking things off. It'll be good stuff. So get your tickets to Potosi Live and check out all the shows they got coming up at PotosiLive.com. Again, Mike Ryan tonight. Looking forward to seeing him tonight as well. But want to mention real quick before we talk, there are some NFL news. We had mentioned a little bit earlier about Colts quarterback Isaiah Rodgers and his being investigated for the gambling stuff. We want to talk about some more NFL stuff in a moment. But I want to give a shout out to Cody Cox and the folks at Camp Able, and really all of you that were part of the Buffalo Run Challenge that helped raise over $430,000. Third year in a row of doing so, and so congratulations. Greg and I were out there emceeing their return home fun party, fellowship, whatever you want to call it. Weather held off great, but it was a lot of fun. And Josh, they've already announced next year, June 6th of 2024. And Cody basically was saying, hey, go get your cars and get ready to roll. But a lot of people were there. And again, the weather held out real good, but a lot of money raised. They had to bring back something random to auction off, and everything was being auctioned off from a side mirror to a telephone booth to roadkill to a roadkill bucket. A lot of weird stuff, but a great, again, outside of the box fundraiser, raising a lot of money for the program at Camp Able. And so it was really good stuff. So congratulations to Camp Able and all those that helped participate and raise a ton of money. Real quick, want to talk as we get ready to head into the weekend, Josh. Some NFL news. Dalvin Cook was notified that he's going to be released from the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Josh, we talked about it. While the reason you and I and Mike Greenberg and others were okay if we were to get Bijan Robinson is that running backs, their shelf life, unfortunately, is no longer Emmitt Smith, no longer Roger Craig, no longer Frank Gore. They are even about Barry Sanders, less than Barry Sanders, of when they decide to let go and let them move on. But I have a hard time thinking that Dalvin Cook is still not a running back, Josh, that could be beneficial somewhere.
And he will be. He'll get picked up and be used in tandem with somebody else the way that running backs are now. He's somebody that I wouldn't mind if the Cowboys picked him up. I don't. He might not be full go. Like he has been. A top all pro type performer, but I think he'd be a valuable member to a football team.
And here's the crazy deal, Josh, and I looked it up, so obviously I can cheat on this. Want to take a guess on how old he is?
27.
Nailed it. 27 years old as a running back. It's crazy how now the league has looked at how old that is. And it's not like, and we can look it up, but it's not like Dalvin Cook just had a terrible year. If you think about it, and maybe that's what would happen. Maybe the Cowboys would get him. There was a running back last year that folks thought you should not draft, and we're going to talk about drafting in a moment, that thought might have been washed up and ended up having a fantastic year, and that was Josh Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
There were people that thought, hey, Josh Jacobs is done, need to move on, whatever. And he ends up having one of the best years last year in the running back position. And so I think Dalvin Cook may be one of those guys that gets another chance. The other news is Zeke Elliott hadn't been signed, and DeAndre Hopkins, of all the places that he's looked at and thought about going to, he's thought about going to and meeting with the Tennessee Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, I don't know why. Now, I know why you leave Arizona for Tennessee, but I don't know why you leave Arizona and want to have a chance to be competitive and win at the Super Bowl and maybe not even Super Bowl, make a good playoff run. Why you don't look somewhere different, knowing that quarterback position as a top wide receiver is a little wishy-washy with Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but, they also have a history of doing, going to the postseason, getting things done. They have, an off year last year, obviously, but I don't know. And it could be just that it's not all just about winning the Super Bowl, but going someplace that you want to be and you have some friends there that you want to be with. I mean, you don't know what all can go into someone's, work decision.
Of course, when you get released, you don't have a whole lot of options.
Well, no, you got to go somewhere.
Right.
And that's the other thing. Who wants you, and of those places that have reached out and his agents talked to that there is a possibility, what do you like the best?
So now I want to throw this out at you, Josh. We've been talking about we talked about draft and a little bit when you draft a running back and all those things. I think it's interesting, and don't get me wrong, we've talked about it all the time since this show's been on the air. We've talked about how the NFL never really is in the offseason. They are always, something's going on. Now, this past year, you've had some decent NBA playoffs, so they've taken a little bit. The biggest news is Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, Tom Brady retiring. And a couple of things, DallasCowboys.com says camp ends with no big injuries. They've been moving folks around at left tackle and left guard and seeing those things. Dak looks good. They're looking at probably restructuring his contract as well. But one of the things that we start seeing, Josh, and I get emails because, again, Matthew Berry's got to have something to do, is they start throwing out ideas for your fantasy football draft. Hey, top sleepers, here's some running backs, all that. Josh is a champion. I've only won it once. How many times have you won our league?
I just won once.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been second place several times.
But been in it. And there's folks like you and Evan's been in it and all those that have won it. And they've stayed up in the top major leagues, if you will, of our two leagues that we have. How soon and what is your prep like? Should folks be paying attention and reading these documents in June?
I don't no. I mean, I don't spend any time, if you really want to get into the weeds of it with fantasy football, until a few weeks right before the draft, because there's always trades, injuries, people sign somewhere else, things like that.
The biggest thing is the injuries.
Injuries is the biggest. So until the rosters are somewhat finalized, I don't spend much time, because all it takes is, one guy signing over here, and suddenly that, you've moved down the depth chart a little bit, or you're spreading those targets around a little bit, so you're not as valuable. So then I have to recalculate what I've done, and then I just, so I'm a more wait to the end and cram type of guy.
Well, and you think about it, that's the way we kind of have to look at it, is you start digging into it. And I understand there's a reason NFL Live is still on every day at 3:00, and they're talking about Lamar Jackson, and they're finding, topics to talk about.
Right.
Very similar to what we do when football starts ending here at the Hodgeback. You start looking for things to talk about, and that's kind of what they're doing in NFL Live and all the other places like Matthew Berry and all those, is creating and still telling stories. Because I do think there are a lot of storylines heading into this football season that we'll be able to look at, like Bill O'Brien coming back to the Patriots to be the offensive coordinator. Can he help not only Mac Jones, but what kind of importance is Bill O'Brien going to be to Bill Belichick to kind of turn that around? Because now everybody in your division's gotten better. If Tua's healthy, the other thing this week, Josh Allen became the cover of Madden a few years ago. That was a curse.
Right.
He says, bring it on. And then, of course, the Jets had Aaron Rodgers. And then Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. So there's plenty of storylines going into this football season. but it's always interesting to see the fantasy football people really make a push. And do you think baseball, because of 162 games, football just seems the easiest? Football and golf, to me, seem the easiest things to be in because you don't have to really be in a league in golf. You just pick golfers the weekend you want.
Yeah.
But like for this, baseball and basketball, there's people out there that do it, but it doesn't take on
Yeah, I've never done
what football does.
I've never done fantasy basketball. I would be at a distinct disadvantage with even knowing who it was supposed to be good, But I really do enjoy playing fantasy baseball. That's what started my fantasy, like
Career.
fantasy sports career. Yeah, was doing baseball, and so I like it. It is a grind because the season is long and there's games every day of the week. So you don't have to necessarily manage it like a fantasy football team where you're, just 10 a.m. waiting to make your lineup, right before game time. I mean, if people take days off and stuff like that you can't catch all of them, you just got to kind of accept that, But there is that daily thing that makes it seem a little too much of a task. Football works very well for the fantasy sports. Now they're spreading it out and they're having games on different days more than they used to. But
you're gonna have to be aware because you may have a guy playing on Black Friday now.
Right. When it used to be basically just Sunday and Monday, it was very easy to, Saturday, Sunday morning before Sunday school, hopefully not when you're sitting in the pew because you forgot, but I'm sure that's happened to a few people. You check and see who's injured, who's starting. That makes it a whole lot easier. It's very conducive to the fantasy.
Right. Well, so anyway, football's rolling, all those things. We've got football not around the corner. Even Ryan Reed earlier, the dad of Landry or somebody, is excited for football. We all are. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show and head into the weekend right after this.
It's where we live. It's where we work. And as your Touchstone Energy Cooperative, we know our
This is a
community
break. We need to do something different because
is
we're going to carry the commercial break at
which is why we're
8:55.
grateful for your
2
trust
minutes.
to the
Quite literally just come back and say, "That's all, folks."
Like for us, there's nothing more important than giving you the power to power on. You are the most important part of Big Country Electric Cooperative. Call or stop by our offices in Rowan, Snyder, and Stanford, or visit our line at bigcountry.com.
Hello, I'm William on the Big Country.
Yeah, I agree.
It was funny sitting there
I'm here to let
in
you
that
know
room
our document is
with
Welcome back to the Hodge Pack. As we get ready to head into the weekend, just want to recap a little bit headlines this week. Again, the NBA Finals Game 4 tonight. Nuggets and the Heat in Miami. They'll be playing. The Heat will try to tie that series up to 2-2. Stanley Cup Finals. Florida gets another win or gets a win to make the series 2-1. And of course, I want to shout out to Rose Zhang. Last week made her LPGA debut, won a national championship with Stanford. 14 days later, makes her LPGA debut and winning last weekend, winning her first tournament debut. A lot of golf going on. Again, the Canadian Open, Texas Tech golfer earning his PGA Tour card, getting a kickoff this week as well. Of course, Michael Block is playing, not doing very good. But again, he's already been one of the big stories of the season. So, again, appreciate everybody. Appreciate Landry and Sawyer coming on. Don't forget you can download, subscribe, rate, review. Check out our podcast channel, our YouTube channel, HodgePackSports.com. We got hats you can buy and all those things. And, again, thank you to Key City Volleyball Girls for joining this morning. Josh, appreciate it. Hope the allergies leave you today. And
I'm feeling better as the day goes on.
there you go. He's a game time decision when it comes to the weekend. Hey, everybody have a great time. Don't forget you got JB Cloud coming in at 10. Texas two-step. Again, head out tonight. Potosi Live, Mike Ryan, and all the things. We'll be back next week with more Hodgeback, sports life, and everything in between.
Good job, Hodge.
All right. Oh, I forgot to shout out